Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, let's just jump right in. We're going to challenge maybe your understanding of science, mythology, consciousness. The whole deal.
Yeah, buckle up a bit. What if the deepest secrets of life, like the actual structure of our DNA, weren't just figured out recently?
What if ancient Amazonian shamans already knew about it,
Yeah.
accessed it somehow through psychedelic visions?
It sounds completely wild, I know, but that's the core of what we're exploring today. Jeremy Narby's really groundbreaking book, The Cosmic Serpent, DNA and the Origins of Knowledge.
Groundbreaking is right. Narby puts forward this idea of an epistemic correspondence, basically a deep similarity between what Amazonian shamans know about cosmology and what modern molecular biology finds.
And the central link, the symbol they both land on, is the serpent, often a double serpent, twisting.
So we've got labs and microscopes on one side and ayahuasca visions on the other, and they're both pointing to snakes. How does that even work?
Well, that's what we're digging into. How does indigenous wisdom, thousands of years old, converge with 20th century science on this image?
And what does it mean for how we think about knowledge itself? Where does it come from?
To really get Narby's argument, you have to understand where he started. He wasn't some mystic looking for enlightenment when he first went to Peru in '85.
No, he was a young anthropologist, right?
Yeah.
Very politically focused.
Exactly. His goal was, well, pretty materialist, actually. He was with the Ashaninka people.
Trying to help him with land rights issues, I think.
Precisely. Proving that their use of the forest was rational and sustainable. He wanted to counter these outside agencies claiming the land was just unused, empty wilderness ready for development.
So spirits and visions weren't really on his agenda.
Not at all. In fact, the whole world of the ayahuasqueros, the shamans, was something he actively avoided at first.
Why? Because it didn't fit the narrative?
Yeah, it was a gray area that was taboo, as he put it. If he started emphasizing knowledge coming from hallucinations, it would completely undermine his argument that the Ashaninka were rational actors managing their resources. It just didn't fit the political strategy.
Makes sense. But something must have shifted his view.
It did, dramatically. An Ashaninka man, Ruperto Gomez, basically told him point blank, if you really want to understand, you have to drink ayahuasca.
He called it the television of the forest.
That's the phrase, where one can see images and learn things. You can imagine Narby, the rationalist, hearing that.
So did he do it?
Eventually, yeah. And the experience, well, it completely floored him. He describes this terrifying vision. He felt surrounded by two enormous, shimmering boa constrictors.
Wow. Giant snakes.
Gigantic. And they communicated with him, but not with words. It was like a direct data transfer, feeling incredibly ancient.
What was the message?
The core message, the feeling he was left with, was this profound sense of just how small he was. He said it revealed he was just a human being.
Humbling.
Deeply. It exposed what he called the bottomless arrogance of his Western assumptions. Like his whole intellectual framework just shattered against this living, conscious reality he couldn't explain.
And that started his real quest. Not politics anymore, but understanding this other way of knowing.
Exactly. That shock, that humility, set him on this years-long journey trying to reconcile what he experienced with what science knows.
Okay, so let's talk about that knowledge. The shamans possess some seriously impressive botanical know-how, right? Like curare.
Right, curare is a classic example. The blowgun poison. It paralyzes muscles. It's not just one plant. It's a complex recipe. Requires combining and processing specific plants.
And modern medicine actually uses it, or derivatives of it, in anesthesia.
They do. It's verifiable, sophisticated biochemistry.
But if you ask the shamans how they figured it out,
They don't say, oh, we did centuries of trial and error. Almost universally, they attribute it to a mythical origin. They say they learned it directly from the plant spirits, usually in a vision.
which brings us back to ayahuasca itself. Because the brew, that's not simple either, is it?
Not at all. This is maybe the most compelling piece. Ayahuasca isn't just one hallucinogenic plant. It has to be two.
Okay, why?
Well, one plant contains DMT, dimethyltryptamine. It's a powerful hallucinogen. But if you just eat that plant, nothing happens.
Because your stomach breaks it down.
Exactly. There's an enzyme in our gut, monoamine oxidase, or MAO, that neutralizes DMT almost instantly. So orally, it's inactive.
So nature's own little defense mechanism.
Right. But here's the genius part. The second plant in the ayahuasca brew contains something else entirely. It contains MAO inhibitors.
So it blocks the blocker.
Precisely. It temporarily shuts down those specific stomach enzymes, allowing the DMT to survive digestion, cross the blood-brain barrier, and become active. The brew only works because of this precise biochemical synergy.
That's actually incredible. They didn't just find a psychedelic plant.
Yeah.
They found the key to make it work orally by deactivating a specific bodily defense.
And they've known this for millennia, long before anyone knew what an enzyme or a DMT molecule was.
How? I mean, seriously, how do you discover that without modern chemistry?
That's the central question Narby keeps asking. And he starts seeing patterns. He finds that shamans all over the world, especially ones using these visionary methods, keep referencing similar core symbols.
The cosmic serpent again.
Yes, often double, or twins. Like in the Dasana cosmology from the Amazon, they talk about two intertwined snakes, a giant anaconda, and a rainbow boa living in the fissure of the human brain.
Wow. And the Aztec word kutwal means both serpent and twin.
Exactly. It's this recurring motif of duality, of intertwined forms, being central to creation and knowledge.
And there's the ladder too, right? The axis mundi.
Right, the world axis. Shamans describe it as a ladder or a vine, sometimes a rope, or even a spiral staircase that connects our world to the spirit world. It's the path they climb in their visions.
And the main ayahuasca vine itself, Banisteriopsis caapi, sometimes grows in a double helix shape, doesn't it?
It often does, yeah. The symbolism is just layered.
Okay, so the symbols are powerful, consistent. But where does the DNA connection come in? How does Narby make that leap from mythic serpents to molecular biology?
He draws a direct structural parallel. He looks at the double helix model of DNA discovered by Watson and Crick in 1953.
And sees the cosmic serpent.
Exactly. He describes DNA as this snake-shaped master of transformation that lives in water because cells are mostly water, and is both extremely long and incredibly small, single and double. It fits the shamanic descriptions remarkably well.
And the scale is just mind-bending.
It truly is. You have to grasp this. The DNA in one of your cells, if you stretched it out, is about 2 yards long.
2 yards in one microscopic cell. Okay.
Now multiply that by the number of cells in your body, maybe 100 trillion, give or take.
Uh-oh. Where are we going to do this math?
You end up with something like 125 billion miles of DNA coiled inside the average human body.
Wait, 125 billion miles.
That's
Just
it.
astronomical. That's like back and forth to the sun hundreds of times. Inside me.
Inside every one of us. It's a biological structure on a truly cosmic scale, packed into the microscopic.
Okay. So the structure fits the serpent image, the scale is immense. What about the language aspect? You mentioned Ruperto Gomez saying you learn things.
Right. This is fascinating, too. Narby looks at how shamans describe the language of the spirits they encounter. The Yamanawa shamans, for instance, call it sai yoshto yoshto,
Which means?
literally language twisting. They say it's intentionally tricky, elliptical, full of multiple meanings. You learn it by singing, by imitating its twists.
Language twisting. And how does that connect?
Well, think about the genetic code. It's also described scientifically as double and entwined, and it's incredibly complex. Only about 3% of our DNA actually codes for proteins.
The rest used to be called junk DNA, right?
Yeah, though we now know it's involved in regulation and other things, but a lot of it consists of endlessly repeated sequences, palindrome sequences that read the same forwards and backwards. It creates what geneticists call a degenerate code.
Degenerate meaning.
Meaning there's redundancy. Multiple different DNA sequences, different words, can code for the same amino acid, the same meaning. It's full of synonyms.
So DNA is like a language that's inherently repetitive, twisty, multi-layered.
A double language that wraps around itself, as Narby puts it. The molecular structure and the way it encodes information mirrors that shamanic description of a twisting, multi-referential spirit language.
Okay, this is getting wild. So structure, scale, language. How does the information actually get transmitted?
Yeah.
What's the mechanism Narby proposes? He mentioned the Ashaninka consultant comparing spirits to radio waves.
Yeah, that's a key analogy, like information flying through the air that ayahuasca helps you pick up. Narby connects this to a scientific concept, biophotons.
Biophotons, like light from biology?
Exactly. It's been scientifically measured. All living cells, their DNA specifically, emit an ultra-weak light. It's incredibly faint. Imagine the light of a single candle seen from 10 kilometers away.
That's basically nothing.
Intensity-wise, yes. But here's the crucial part. This light has an extraordinarily high degree of coherence.
Coherence, like a laser.
Precisely like a laser, as opposed to the chaotic, jumbled light from a regular light bulb. Coherent light is highly organized. It can carry a lot of information. Think holograms, intense colors.
And Narby thinks that's what people are seeing in visions, the coherent light emitted by DNA.
He proposes that, yes, that this coherent biophoton field generated by the entire network of DNA-based life could be the source of the incredibly bright, detailed, holographic imagery people report in ayahuasca visions.
So the DMT, boosted by the MAOI inhibitor, it's like it retunes the brain, makes it sensitive to this biological light network.
That's the hypothesis. It acts like a biochemical switch, allowing consciousness to temporarily tap into this highly organized, information-rich communication system inherent in the biosphere itself. Your brain becomes a receiver for the radio waves of life carried on light.
Okay, if there's actual science, like biophotons, that could potentially support this, why isn't mainstream biology all over it? Why the resistance?
Narby points to what he calls the postulate of objectivity. It's a core assumption in Western science, especially biology.
Which is?
That to study nature objectively, you must assume nature is inanimate, without purpose, without consciousness. It's just matter and energy following laws.
So admitting DNA might be communicating through light, or that ancient shamans accessed this, that violates the basic rules.
It completely messes with that fundamental assumption. It introduces agency, consciousness, information, where science insists there should only be chance and necessity. It forces biologists to attribute things like the incredibly complex genetic code or the statistically impossible discovery of the ayahuasca recipe to just random luck.
Happy accidents on a massive scale.
Right. And Narby argues that the sheer complexity molecular biology is revealing makes the just chance explanation look increasingly inadequate, almost like willful ignorance.
It brings us back to that bottomless arrogance he felt in his vision. The idea that our current scientific model must be the only way to understand reality.
Exactly. The complexity we're finding almost demands we reconsider that rigid separation between the material and the spiritual or conscious aspect of life.
So Narby's big picture, his synthesis, is what? That shamans aren't just having subjective hallucinations?
His synthesis is that what shamans perceive and interact with, what they call spirits, essences, the cosmic serpent, might actually be, in our terms, the living interconnected network of DNA, the entire biosphere communicating with itself and potentially with us through this coherent light.
And the shamanic techniques, the visions induced by plants like ayahuasca, are essentially refined methods, defocalization techniques, to access this network, to perceive this biomolecular reality directly.
That's the core idea. They developed ways to tune into verifiable biological information long before we had the tools to even detect DNA or biophotons.
It completely flips the script, doesn't it? Instead of the anthropologist studying the primitive shaman.
Maybe the shaman had already perceived the fundamental reality that the scientist is only now beginning to decode with instruments.
Which leads to that amazing anecdote at the end of his journey.
Oh, yeah. Years later, Narby goes back to the Amazon, finds his Ashaninka consultant, Carlos.
And tells him,
basically, hey, after all my years studying biology back home, I've figured it out. Everything you told me about the snakes, about knowledge coming from them, about them being the source of life, it's actually scientifically true on a molecular level.
He must have been expecting Carlos to be impressed, right? Vindication.
You didn't think so. But Carlos's only reply was, completely deadpan. What took you so long?
Oof, that cuts deep.
Doesn't it? That's such a perfect challenge.
It really leaves you thinking, when we look at these ancient knowledge systems, these non-Western ways of understanding the world, is our science always the pioneer? Or is it sometimes just playing catch-up, slowly finding elaborate ways to prove what other traditions knew all along through different means?
It's a profound question about the nature of knowledge and the limitations of our own perspective. Something to definitely mull over.
Absolutely.